Thank you, Peter. Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, I don't know. I don't quite live up to my son. I have a 2-year-old now. That's been the biggest adjustment in my life recently. But it's fun. It's the best thing that ever happened to me. So I wish he was here, but he would be screaming most of the time. So, yeah, can we turn the lights down just a tiny bit? A little bit. Yeah, there he is. Yeah, so I started dabbling in fake business, if you can call it that, like a decade ago. And then I think I got serious about 8 years ago now, which is when I quit my job and I started working from home full time. And then, I've been traveling. I left the U.S. in the end of 2008. So I just recently had my 7-year anniversary. And I think I've been to like 35 or so countries. And I've lived, I call it slow travel because I've lived for at least 3 or 6 months, sometimes a year, 2 years in 7 of those countries, I believe. So there's a lot of, I don't consider myself a perfect, I'm definitely not a perfect dude or anything, but I don't really consider myself a very good role model for a lot of the stuff I'm going to tell you. But, yeah, so Marcus asked about failure before. I'm just a failure. That's how I feel about myself. I don't know about you guys, but I've just failed. I've failed for the last 8 years. That's what I do. But anyhow, you keep working on it. You get better, as Marcus was telling us. That was a great, I don't know where he went, but that was fantastic, man, so thank you. And I love the superhero theme. That's what I'm all about. Thrilling heroics is my home on the web. But anyhow, this is I wanted to share just 10 of the biggest lessons, I guess, I have picked up along the way from all my travels and meeting people from different, wildly different cultures and backgrounds. Hanging out with everyone from multimillionaires to refugees with nothing, business failure mostly, a tiny bit of success, and then fatherhood. So you listen to me. Here's a few bullet points about what I've achieved, because this is important, right? 2006. I started writing online. I actually started earlier than that, but I started officially writing online at Thrilling Heroics about, it started as something different than it is now, but I had an early interest in business, green business, sustainable business, and then it's evolved into a bit more about the lifestyle and travel and solopreneurship, if you want to call it that. 2007, like probably many people, I read the 4-Hour Work Week, and a lot of things clicked for me. They're there, sitting right in front of your face, but a lot of things clicked thanks to that book and Tim Ferriss. So I quit my job, and like I told you, I started to work from home and build up my business for about a year, and then I set the goal of moving abroad. So I got a one-way ticket to Thailand in late 2008. Ended up bouncing around a whole bunch, but most of 2009 I spent in Bangkok organizing a lot of smaller events than this. This is massive, but we called it the BKK Tweet Up, but every month we would have a kind of a charity mixer, just getting people together to have a good time and have some drinks, and we always kind of negotiated a deal where we'd throw an amazing party and 15 or 20% of the proceeds would go to some different not-for-profit projects that one of my best friends is working on at In Search of Sanook. 2010, I finally got my act together, and I started to go from I started with freelance web design and web development services. And so I was just working with clients day in, day out. And that got me through the first, 3 years of living abroad. But I did everything I could in that time. I was living cheap in a little studio apartment in the heart of Bangkok and eating $3 meals. And did everything I could to really scale up my business. So I think, 2010, I finally got my act together, and I really started to offer more productized services, which is like taking a service, but like making it very uniform. So you buy a package, you get X, Y, Z. There's certain deliverables, and it eliminates a lot of the whatever, different questions in your head, like what am I going to be doing this month? How much am I going to earn? And I've worked with people like Sovereign Man, Chris Ducker, if any of you know him. And in 2011, with a few partners at the time, someone approached me and said, hey, how come we don't have like a course teaching people how to do this stuff? It's sort of weird and meta. I feel weird about it. But in 2011, I presented the idea to my audience, and like I'd already been getting emails all the time, people saying how, oh, that's so cool. You can work from anywhere. I wish I could do that. It's like there's nothing special about me. So we did our best to put together a foundational course to kind of introduce people to the basics of business and how to get set up online, basic sales and marketing tactics. 2012, I call the year of suffering, but I'll come back to that. 2013, 14-ish, I started to host events. Put on my first workshop in San Francisco, California. Put on a retreat in Costa Rica. Now, on occasion, I do kind of these little mastermind retreats in Krabi, down south in Thailand. And then more recently, my life has predominantly been about becoming a father and the transition, or the transition to all of that and the responsibility it brings. The last reason you should listen to me is because I've met Warren Buffett. So there. This is, by the way, that guy got denied by Harvard in 1950. This is some of the crew. I guess I used to, all but Warren Buffett. I met him once and shook his hand and exchanged 2 sentences, but he's a really cool guy, super down to earth. But this is actually an event that I organized for. I used to work for a college of business at Sacramento State in California. So this is my last of, I think, 17 jobs I had, growing up. And then I somehow ended up as a staff member, basically working right under the dean of the business school. And I'm very thankful for that experience because it introduced me to a lot of ideas about business and entrepreneurship, and that's why I'm here now. But shortly after meeting this guy, I quit that job because the reason being, I got exposed to lots of interesting ideas, got to meet a ton of pretty high-level players and important business people, sponsors in the local community, which was fantastic. And meeting people like Warren Buffett is pretty, I don't know, it's kind of a bucket list item for me. But yeah, one day, I was working for a university, almost like working for the state. And one day, one of my coworkers, she worked in the next office. And I just remember, I'll always remember this, the day they had a little celebration for her with cake and a certificate and all this bullshit for 30 years. 30 years. Massive respect to her. She's a wonderful woman. But I just, at that point, I thought, holy crap, if I have to sit at the same desk and push the same paper and, put together reports that someone else is going to put their name on and, all that sort of stuff, for 30 years, I'll probably shoot myself in the face. So that's when I decided to take a chance on myself, I guess you would say. And, yeah, early on, I read 4-Hour Workweek in 2007. And like I said, that kind of made some ideas click for me. And even at the very beginning, I believed this to be true, but now after having traveled and done the entrepreneurship thing for 8 years or so, I will say I believe today that the pairing of those two things, travel plus entrepreneurship, is the best way to just skyrocket your personal development. Because you're challenging yourself in almost most of the major ways that I'm aware of, and learning to develop skills to provide for yourself, skills to recover from failure, all of that stuff. So that's why I chose to jump into the nomad lifestyle, I guess, and it's why I still stick with it today. Plus, fun things happen, right? When you earn dollars, live on pesos, and compensate in rupees. That was from Tim Ferriss. It's true. So here's just 10 lessons I've picked up along the way. And like I say, I'm not the perfect example by far of most of them. Like, I struggle with reminding myself of these things constantly. But like at this point in my journey, these things seem like the most important lessons that I do try to constantly remind myself of. And I know that, like, it's my job to improve at these things. So number one is just to not stay isolated. You got to find community, which is what we have here. This is awesome. And Johnny, with his Nomad coffee meetups, you know, that's why I love Chiang Mai, because there's a lot of community-oriented things to do around here. But for all of us, like, I know what it's like when, for those of you who are early stage, I totally know the struggle, especially when maybe you haven't quit your job yet, and you're like working 100 times harder than anyone you know, nights and weekends and stuff like that. You know, I know how difficult that can be, and most people do it in isolation. So that's what I've seen over and over. You need to find support. You need to find friends and family members who believe in you. It's hard sometimes. But that's why you should be in a place like this and seeking out communities of like-minded people. And yeah, you can't ever forget that business is about people. At the end of the day, like, I got a lot of friends that make a shitload of money. I hope you guys don't mind my cursing, but at the end of the day, like, you're in the business of serving people, like of providing some kind of value for people around you, or they might be far away from you, but that's the job of an entrepreneur, is to create value for others. And you get your customers, like, I pretty much think, yeah, almost every business, you earn your customers one at a time, even online. And don't build in a vacuum. Definitely, whatever stage you're at, like, you don't want to be creating that thing that you think is awesome and fascinating without, like, speaking to your target demographic and getting constant feedback from people. But that's one major mistake that I've made plenty of times and I see people make. And there's a benefit in building your own community. If you have the type of business where you can build a community around it and kind of get people involved in the process of creating your product or service, improving it, it doesn't work 100% of the time, but if you're in a business where that works, then, build your own army, your own group of supporters. This is, this is Rajesh Sethi. This guy, just real quick, I wanted to tell you about him because I owe my whole business to him. And this was back when I was working for the business school, and at the time I thought I wanted to try to sneak my way into Stanford for their graduate school of business. That was before I realized that, like, I could do all that stuff on my own, and I knew half the people I would have met if I'd gone there anyhow, through other means. But, Rajesh is a friend of mine now, but someone who I really looked up to early on. Found his blog, read his book. He's like a 7-time author. I don't know if he is right now, but for the longest time, he was always like on the board or president or CEO of about 8 different companies at a time in Silicon Valley. And so, through attending a lot of events at Stanford and reading his stuff online, I eventually developed a bit of a relationship with him and started to go back and forth. So he became my biggest mentor and was the first person to really encourage me to go out on my own and build this business. First person, I actually offered to build a site for him for free, and that really got me in his favor. He loved it. He insisted on giving me my first $100 so I could, I'd frame that, put it on the wall. But, but yeah, I think my second lesson is to find mentors, no matter what stage you're at. I think if you're at early stage, something like what I did, I didn't really even think about it that consciously at the time, but now you have people like Charlie Hone, my friend who wrote the book Recession-Proof Graduate. He talks about free work. If you're just starting out and have no idea how to get clients, a lot of times that's a great thing to do is reach out to someone you look up to, whose work you appreciate, someone you wish you knew, or someone who has a bit of visibility, and offer to thank them for what they do, what you appreciate, by building something for them, doing something for them. It doesn't have to be free, but like if you can make an offer to someone who has made a difference in your life in that way and like impress them with your skills, that's a great way to kickstart a new business. But yeah, I mean, any stage you're at, one of the biggest things is I think, I'm guilty of it too sometimes. Like you think you know everything and you could do it all on your own. A lot of people, especially your elders, like people who've been in business or whatever it is you're talking about in life, but like, I feel like our generation kind of actually lost a little bit of the respect for the elders. And I'm telling you, it's important. Like, even though they think differently, they could teach you stuff, you know? Learn from other people's mistakes. So you got to find people you can learn from. And sometimes even, taking a job for the right person. If it's a great entrepreneur who you respect, who has built something that you'd like to learn from and emulate, then sometimes find an internship. And actually, so I wanted to mention one of our sponsors, Empire Flippers, it's not really an internship, but they have a pretty awesome role open if anyone's looking for that kind of a thing. It's always a great stepping stone to spend some time learning from like a balling, experienced entrepreneur for a while and then start your own thing. That's something I wish I'd done. I didn't really spend much time doing that. Third lesson is to keep a mastermind group. I think most people probably know what that is. Jim Rohn said, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, and a whole bunch of other people have tried to steal that quote too, but I think it was originally from him. It really is who you know. And I started my first mastermind group in college, I think about 2003 or 4. And that set me on a totally different path in life. Before that, I was not super ambitious. I mean, I'm still not super ambitious compared to a lot of people I know, but I didn't have very much ambition at all. And but when I started to have bigger ideas, I just brought together a group of my most ambitious friends that I knew at the time and said, hey, let's get together once a week, sit down, share what we're working on, the challenges we're hitting, the things we're trying to do, our goals, and just share with each other on a regular basis and see how we can help each other out. That's basically what a mastermind group is. But yeah, think about who do you have around you? Are they assisting you, in getting you towards where you want to be? Are they distracting you? A lot of people, they don't mean to, but a lot of people are a distraction, Are they blocking you? There's probably some people you love who, they might not mean it, but when you present an idea that's so outside someone else's worldview, a lot of times they're going to be like, what the heck, you're crazy, you can't do that. So sometimes you'll have people who are kind of sucking that energy, or on occasion someone who's just trying to mess with you. So get rid of those people if you can, or just minimize your time with them. But yeah, think about who do you want to be, find the right people to model, to emulate, to mimic. Build yourself your own little tight support group, and this is positive peer pressure, because if every week you're going to have to answer to a small group of other people who are like-minded and working on similar things. If you go 2-3 weeks without accomplishing some of the goals you tell them you're working on, then you got people who are going to hold you accountable and be like, what's going on? Do you need help? Is something going wrong? 2 things to look at are Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich. And if you guys can see them here, I'll put these online, hopefully, but the slides. But there's a short URL there if you want to get that for free. Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, probably the #1 book I recommend for anyone. But and then Sovereign Man put out a network infiltration report, which is actually pretty cool. Number 4, practice gratitude. This is one that I only really came to appreciate more recently. It's a little touchy-feely, airy-fairy for me, but that's how my life is going. Probably, I hope, who practices gratitude? Does anyone have a gratitude practice? Yeah, nice. Fucking hey, rad. Keep it up. I wasn't super conscious about that stuff for a long time, but thankfully I came across this thing, the 5-minute journal. And then I've just kind of adapted that myself. So it's a great resource to grab if you want. Or just sit down every morning and think about what are what are the top 3 things you're thankful for in your life right now? And then at the end of the day, you can do it like, what are the 3 coolest things that happened to me today? Because I think the mind finds what it looks for. Like there's all that stuff out there about The Secret, and it's kind of weird. I don't know. But there is some truth to that, for sure. It's way more complicated than they make you think, way more complicated. You got to work. You can't just think, oh, magic monies, and they show up. But you become what you think about most. Because you start looking for other people that are doing that stuff. You start seeking out books and resources to learn more about it. Like, everything is a product of what you think about. So that's the biggest thing I'm finally learning at 31 years old, is like to be really mindful of your thoughts and to be grateful for the things you like, because then you'll start to get more of those things. And other tools are, of course, meditation. Anyone that doesn't know them, there's a couple great apps like Headspace and Calm. And I recommend, I hope this room is probably not a super TV-oriented room, but if you watch TV, try quitting for just 1 week, 7 days. Try to watch like no television and replace it with motivational videos on YouTube or, I don't know, there's a lot of things, watch videos from an entrepreneur that you're inspired by. I listen to a lot of podcasts myself. 5, failure is necessary. It's not something to be avoided. I mean, kind of, but it's going to happen. So just get used to that right now. For almost everyone, 99.99% of people, the first thing you do is not going to, do it for you. It's like that's what we're in the business of, is just constantly trying new things and seeing how they work and getting feedback from customers and then readjusting. I love this quote from Robert Kennedy: "Only those who dare to fail greatly can ever achieve greatly." And Reid Hoffman from LinkedIn also said, if you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product and you've launched too late, the guy who founded LinkedIn, he's a big deal in Silicon Valley in technology, but I love that one too. So if you're early, you have an idea or a product or whatever, and you're hesitant to put it out there because you're afraid of failure, just do it. Or if you're embarrassed, that's exactly when you should do it, is just hit the button and see what happens. And then, they call it pivoting. You put it out there in the world, you get that feedback from people, and then you adjust. And I actually was recently on Virgin.com, Richard Branson's blog, all about one of my major failures recently. So if you want to watch a short video of me talking about that, you can find it at thrillingheroics.com/failure. A little more about that stuff. In line with that, the 6th message, it's a little more specific. Don't stay married to your ideas. Because you could have smaller failures and try to keep adjusting. Sometimes you need to scrap stuff. Sometimes you're trying to, you're kicking a dead horse, right? So this is from my friend Derek Sivers. I think this was at World Domination Summit. I snagged this because I like this. Success comes from persistently improving and inventing, not from persistently pushing what's not working. And then it goes on. Let me see if I have this in my notes. Yeah. He continues, don't commit to one idea of the future, but instead commit to a problem that you want to solve. Then you can stay committed to the problem and continually try to find the ongoing and ever-changing answer to that problem. Derek Sivers is probably worth, more than 20 million now. That's some of the best advice I've ever heard from him. So, there's a difference between what your dreams, the way they might look in your head, and then there's always other ways to achieve them. And sometimes you're just thinking about things a little off. And no business plan survives its first exposure to the real world, right? So anytime you're launching something or trying to market something, sell something, sometimes people are just not going to be that into it. So you need to learn to take that feedback and take what lessons you can from it as quickly as you can and iterate and do something that people want, a little more. Get closer to their needs and desires. Another good Actually, yeah, this is the best exercise to figure that out. Like, not the specific goals you think you want to achieve. Like, for me, I was talking about trying to write a book this year. I don't know if it's going to happen because I got cancer in the family and different things, blah, blah, blah. But, you have, like, specific goals. But then what are the bigger overarching goals? Like, these questions, super simple, but, like, really important. And I think not enough people probably think critically about this. What do you want to experience, like, with your life, your whole life? What do you want to experience? How do you want to grow? And how do you want to contribute to others? But this exercise from Vishen Lakhiani, who's the founder of Mind Valley in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Awesome business. I respect these guys so much. Look this up. The 3 most important questions to ask yourself will help you stay on the path, even when things are not going right or not going the way you'd hoped. 7, don't jump into bed with the wrong people. Always good advice, but this is one I got. This was one of my failures, probably more than once, but I had one particularly bad partnership that went south real fast and paid the price. I'm not going to go into the details, but do your due diligence with people you partner up with. And yeah, don't jump into anything overnight just because you see dollar signs or just it sounds like a good idea. Like, really get to know people. I think it's important to partner, but you got to partner up with people and collaborate with people who share your values. So get to know people at that level. And then, yeah, 8 is like, but do partner up, do collaborate. I think that's another one. Because I'd had several failed partnerships in the past, I got burned really badly a couple times. I've just been almost ruined, but I kept powering through it. The lesson I've learned though now, I avoided partnering. I'm always trying to do everything myself. And that's the fastest way to burn yourself out is trying to, wear 500 hats or 1,000. So it's important to always look for those opportunities to partner up in smart ways and delegate stuff so you can focus on what you do best. Lastly, take care of yourself. This should be hopefully fairly self-evident to most people, but I wish I really, truly, truly appreciated this earlier than 30, 31. But I saw this somewhere, being conscious about your fitness in particular, they were saying, but it's not about now, it's not about looking great and that sort of stuff, but it's to ensure that when you're older, as you age, you can stay fit, and healthy and not spend the bulk of your time in the hospital or immobile. There's people in my life, my own mother, a lot of people I care about who their health has really, really gone downhill. And there's, we're smart enough now. If you can be conscious about it, you can prevent a lot of that sort of stuff and be more productive later into your life and enjoy it a whole lot more. I have an injury right now, actually, and it makes me so grumpy. So, try to do things to avoid that. And actually, yeah, so if you're, one big thing is a morning routine, which again, like I said, I'm not a perfect role model for this, but I'm trying to establish a better morning routine and stick to it more regularly. Thehabitsheet.com is great for stuff like that. Number 10, never stop learning. I came from, I got my bachelor's in something totally different, but then I ended up working for the business school. I think, there's great lessons you can learn, wonderful people you can meet, but I think most of the world, our education system totally doesn't prepare us for the actual necessities of life, right? How to balance your checkbook, but how to, basic things that we should teach people, how to carry on a healthy relationship, how to find someone to love, and what the fuck does love even mean? Big questions. There's a lot of things that traditional schooling does not address at all. So I always try to, I have a lot of younger people ask me about should they go to college or should they just jump into business. It depends on the person, but I think college or a university degree is not necessarily, it's not absolutely necessary, But what is necessary is like self-directed education. You can't give up on the learning process and think that you know it all. Like everyone you meet can teach you something. Another thing I wanted to say, like if you can't find mentors in person, if you're struggling, books, like you can have a mentorship type relationship with someone who you may never have met. There's a lot, especially today, more than ever. You can learn from Seth Godin, like whatever, a couple times a week on his blog. Read their books, but like always keep learning. And I think, again, like in our situation, if you're a nomad, you're putting yourself in a place where you're constantly challenged to adapt and to learn. If you're traveling, if you're in a foreign culture, and if you're trying to create value for people and find things that other people actually want, like those are great ways to keep challenging yourself and keep growing. Do I have another couple minutes? 5 minutes? Okay. So, a quick thought experiment. Related to the 5 people that you spend the most time with, but I'll just try to leave you with this. Is think about, if you haven't done this before, think about like clearly define exactly the kind of life you want to the best of your ability. I'm still getting more and more clear on that, and it will change over time, of course. But if you can spend time thinking critically about that, like exactly what you want your life to be like, and what you want to spend your time doing, and then seek people who either have it or are really close to it. I think, with Facebook and Twitter and a billion emails, at least for me in my inbox, like there's so much distraction these days. And I'm guilty of following a lot of different thought leaders, and subscribing to a lot of stuff. And it's all great. But I think the more that you can focus down that energy and your consumption of information in this crazy world we're living in 2016, and it's only getting crazier. But like if you can focus on the few people who you most admire or you most value their wisdom and you most want to emulate, like think of the 5 people that you most would want to trade places with, right? No matter how famous or rich or any of that stuff, like who are they? Think deeply about that and put together a list of the top 5 role models or idols, like I don't think you should idolize anyone, but you know what I mean. And then maybe, the 5 friends who are closest to playing that same game too. Like, who are the people that you know personally that are pretty close? Like they're doing something similar to what you'd love to be able to do. Spend time with those people if you can. And I'll give you my list for like the role models, the famous people. I'll give you that because I don't want to. You probably know there's probably 1 or 2 in this room actually of personal friends, but my list for like the big shots, right, is actually Vishen Lakhiani, the guy from Mind Valley, Joe Rogan, Anthony Bourdain, Tim Ferriss, Richard Branson. That's my list. I'd love to be any one of those guys, but I'm trying to carve out my own weird combination of those. So I guess. So that's it. If I've got some more resources, I actually will share. There's a 15-20 minute meditation that I am trying to incorporate into my morning routine more often. And when I use that, it gives me literal superpowers. It like sets the tone for the day in the best way imaginable. Yeah, it gets me focused on the things that are most productive for me to be thinking about. And I think if you can start your day with that on a regular basis, you'll see some quick, massive change. So I'll share that and my list of top 10 recommended books with you guys. If you're interested, sign up at Thrilling Heroics. And I hope you will join me at Thrilling Heroics if you guys are like, I'm looking for real life heroes. Like that's what I mean. Like those top 5 people are, in my perspective, who do I most want to emulate? Who do I respect the most? And another lesson from failure is all of my personal friends. Like I've been doing this for about almost a decade, the better part of a decade. So I've been there with a lot of fellow friends and colleagues who, a lot of them have done big things. But all of my friends today who like started in 05, 06, and they're still here today and they're killing it, it's because they just didn't give up. Like they failed time and again. They fell on their face sometimes, right? Had embarrassing things happen. The one key I see to success is this: to refuse to let any of that stop you. And so I'm looking for people that share that belief and like have the grit to try to do that. And I'm looking to highlight people that do that, just to give you some good news, rather than all the shit you see on TV, and some examples to follow. So if you're interested in that, that's what my site's about. If there's time for a question.
All right. Cody McKibben, ladies and gentlemen.